Welcome to Second Listen Saturday on the Parenting Roundabout podcast, where we share some fun moments from a past episode for your weekend listening pleasure. Look for new episodes every Monday through Friday. It's been on my mind lately how one teaches a child, or in my case, a young person, to gracefully enter a conversation and to maintain a conversation. And my kids both had language delays, and so being part of a conversation has always been a difficult thing. Mm-hmm. And as they're getting older, they're strengthening their skills, but that is one that still seems to be difficult. My daughter wants to get into conversations. She's studied the way people do it. She's come up with figures of speech and stuff, but what happens is she tends to just break into the middle of somebody else's conversation with a completely random observation. The observation itself not being bad, but just that's not how you do it. Right. It's like you have to gracefully merge into the conversation highway. You can't just take a turn across all lanes of traffic. So, I've been wondering how to help with this, because it's, if you comment on some way somebody converses, there's no way to do it without embarrassing them. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I mean, if it's annoying to us at home, it's annoying to peers and annoying to coworkers. And I just would like to, maybe there's some way to help with this. And, I've had opportunities to observe adults who also don't seem to get it too much. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Long weekend with the family. And, and I have a friend who just always repeats herself during phone conversations, not things she's told me before, but in the same conversation that we're having. And so it's difficult for a lot of people, I think. And even myself, I am concerned as to how I do with this, because I have the uncomfortable experience of editing this podcast and seeing a visual representation of our conversations. And I see you guys have nice blocks of talk and nice blocks of listening, and mine is like a solid bar of sound. Shut up, Terry. Oh my God. So perhaps I could use some pointers for you guys. Have you done anything? How does one converse well? Help me to help my kids.
Well, I think it's hard on the podcast because we can't see each other.
That's true.
So there's no eye contact, there's no body language that could help. Mm-hmm. Not to say that, that's the only way, but, and that I think would be really hard to teach. Like, what do you do? Like, watch videos of people having conversations, be like, see right there, that person wants to say something. Right. It's hard. I don't know, because, I have a kid who, knows a lot of facts and likes to share them. And, there's a time and a place for that.
Right.
And it's pretty hard sometimes to determine what is the right time and place. Without, crushing someone's spirit. So I have a hard time with that too. Like, if you're with the kid or the person, you can maybe work out some little signals or something like, okay, let's move on or whatever. But I don't know.
I've been trying hand signals, but then I get a look like, why are you always telling me to shut up? Time out. Let the other person finish talking first, then come in. But even then, if it's completely random, like as you say, with somebody who knows a lot of facts, that seems like it should be a good conversation starter, but only if other people are interested in the same facts you are.
Right, exactly. Right. And also, and I struggle with this myself, say a fact that's different from the other person's fact. Yeah. When is the time to let that information out? And when is the time to just be like, you know what? I can keep that to myself, and I can personally know I'm right, but I don't need the other person to know they're wrong.
Yeah. I'll just call my friends later and tell them, do you believe what this person said?
Yeah, that one's really hard for certain people in my household. And like I said, it's hard for me. I don't, I certainly know that it's, not very polite to correct people, but
right.
But when someone's flat out wrong.
Yeah. I was just reading your article, Catherine, about conversation starters that you shouldn't use.
Yes.
And looking at them and thinking, well, then how do you do any of this stuff without just coming out and be blunt? I guess that's what you should do, or just shut up. These are your options. Either be rude and blunt or shut up. All your graceful entries into the difficult conversation.
I know, right?
People recognize them and know what's coming, and it's like, you're busted.
Well, there were some very subtle examples in there, like the difference between saying I think and I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds very similar, but it does give off kind of a different message. So
It does. It does.
It's tough.
Yeah. As annoyed as I am hearing those things in a conversation, it's really hard not to use them. Because otherwise you feel like you're just being blunt. I don't know. Right. I think we should just all forget conversing altogether and just only instant message one another.
I don't know. I saw this. There's a lot of sites online, like 101 conversation starters. I don't know. Like sometimes I inadvertently revert back to just a plain old bland conversation starter that I've stored away somewhere.
Give us an example. Start a conversation.
How was your day?
It was cold.
Yeah, it wasn't cold.
I don't know.
Well, I think also part of the challenge is not just what to say, but when to say it.
When to say it.
When to say it is difficult.
Right?
And especially if you're trying to join in a conversation that's already underway.
Yeah.
That's really challenging, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that, I don't know, is it just like about practice? I mean, when I first started working in magazines, right after I graduated from college, I would have to go to a lot of events, press events and things. And I had to learn how to go to a party without a buddy.
Oh,
because when you're in school, I mean, you rarely would go anywhere without a trusty, what do you call it?
Yeah.
A wingman. But I would have to go to these things by myself often. So I just had to learn to plunge in and just introduce myself. I mean, that's usually one way that you can start if it's people you don't know. Because otherwise I would just be in the corner the whole time, not participating at all. So it was kind of a trial by fire, but I think that is how I learned to talk to people, to talk to strangers, and to try to join into conversations that were already started. But it's in that you're really depending a lot on the people who are already talking to invite you in.
Yes, that is true.
And if they're not doing that, it's very hard to.
Yeah, it is hard to. Are these conversations with strangers or conversations with people that are known entities?
Well, any of them really are difficult. Even conversations among the family. You don't, if you have two people having a conversation and somebody comes in, and it's not just a matter of waiting till there's a pause in the conversation. It's saying something that's appropriate.
Right.
If you wait till there's a pause and then you say something from out of left field, people are going to be annoyed.
Right.
And it's a lot of it, I think, is knowing how to read the room.
Yeah.
And, are two people having a very close conversation, or are they just generally chatting? If I say something and it doesn't go over well, am I going to recognize that it's not going over well and either shut up or change to something else? I certainly know adults who don't read the room well. Long weekend with family. And and possibly I sometimes don't either. So, which is, of course, then once you start realizing other people don't do it right, you're constantly paranoid about yourself. Did I say that? Let me think over every conversation I've had in the last year. Was I missing something? Were people looking at me and saying, "What are you talking about?"
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not there when my kids are having conversations with coworkers, so I don't know how they're doing. But I got to think that there's times when it's awkward.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And your daughter has a job where she has to interact with a lot of people.
To some extent, yeah. Yeah. And sometimes she tells me conversations and then I rethink how everything should have been done. No, don't say that. But I know she talks a lot with her coworkers. I don't know how much she talks with the customers as she's bagging their groceries, but I imagine most people talk to the cashier if they're going to talk to somebody.
Right.
But occasionally she said that somebody said something to her that seemed odd, and I don't know what the context of it is, so it's hard to say. But oftentimes I coach my kids through conversations. Yeah. But then I'm not there to read the room either, and I don't know. I just know what they've said, other people said. So it's possible sometimes I hear what they're saying, how what I've told them to say is filtered through their brains, and it's not right. Should I just go with you and just talk for you? It worked so well when you were young. Could I just do it again? But then
they probably wouldn't mind.
They're the weird person with their mother tracking along. So I need one of those like I think we've talked about this before, how useful this would be, like they have on crime shows where you got a little thing in your ear and somebody's feeding you things to say. Yeah. And they can hear what the other person is saying. Right. That's what I need.
Yes.
That would be excellent. And then I would be able to do nothing else all day but sit in my little sit in my command center. Maybe I could have like a little van and I could follow them. I could be sitting outside in the van,
Yeah, that wouldn't be creepy at all, Terry.
Probably not the most creepy thing I've done, however.
Any neighbors calling the cops. Just go right along.
The van seems to be following this young person around. I don't know.
Right. I don't know. I think it's hard. I mean, especially because you could try to discuss things afterward, but if you're not there in the first place, and also if the child or adult is not receptive to your wonderful advice and counsel.
Yes, as we've often discussed.
Yeah.
Not so much the case. Well, I guess I could take comfort in the fact that I do see other adults who have difficulty, and maybe everybody's just rolling their eyes at everybody, and it's okay.
I certainly don't think it's limited to kids or kids with language delays, No. It happens with a lot of people, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think I would rather see somebody who's a good listener as opposed to somebody who takes over the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. That is annoying.
Yes. This is what I've often tried to persuade my daughter. People will like you if you just sit and listen, as long as you look engaged. Yes. They will be very happy that you don't talk. Just sit there.
Because people want to hear themselves talk, not someone else. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. I mean, do you think, I don't know, when you're watching TV or something, can you say, I like how they joined in that conversation? I don't know. That feels super, super fake and artificial, but...
There was a time when I could have done that back before we each had our own screen that we go sit in front of individually. Right. So that's complicated. But yeah, I always used to like watching TV shows and pointing things out based on that to see how that person did that, or let's talk about it. So I advise people who say, I never let my kid watch TV. You're throwing away a tool there. Yeah. There's lots of things you can use to open up conversations. Yeah. But now she watches her YouTube videos, which I have no idea what she's talking about. Oftentimes she'll come up in conversation and mention somebody, and I'm like, oh, who is that? Is that somebody you work with? Oh, no, that's somebody on a video. Like, it's not real life, but I'll put that conversation off for another time.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to have that conversation.
No.
Do you feel like maybe all the internet stuff now is interfering with people's ability to have conversations? Or do you think it's always been
I think
awkward?
it might be making it harder. And I mean, I know just for myself that I'm so much less comfortable talking on the phone than I used to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I'm not a big phone person anymore.
All right. And it's not even that I'm always uncomfortable. I mean, it's just, there's tons of people that I like to talk to, that I'm happy to talk to in person, but on the phone, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be on the phone. And I don't know why that is. Like I said, people I enjoy talking to, people that at one point in my life, I would have spent an hour on the phone with regularly.
Yeah,
but
remember
why
that?
can't I do it now?
When we used to spend hours talking on the phone? I can't think of the last time I had that long a conversation. I'm usually trying to get off. And I don't know why. That's interesting.
I mean, part of it, I think, is just, general busyness. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like some of it is just the phone.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I was having a conversation with a relative, long weekend with family, and she was saying that she only wanted to talk to people on the phone. She didn't like this text messaging. She didn't like the internet messages. She likes to talk to people. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to talk to people. I want anything but talking to people. I want to get your voicemail and I want to send you messages on the computer. I don't want to talk. And it's just, I guess, a different, maybe I'm much more into tech than she is or what, but I just felt such a divide. Like, I don't even want to be having this conversation now.
know, it was,
I consider.
It's stressful having to talk, especially
listen to us. We podcast every week, but we wouldn't want to talk.
We all record our tracks individually, and then I just mix them together. But we're actually talking to ourselves, each of us.
Yeah. And don't be offended. I don't think I want to talk to you on the phone. Over podcast is fine.
I don't know. Maybe it's because you don't have to hold the. We're not talking into phones for the podcast. We're just talking into the air, into microphones. It's a little easier. You can do other things with your hands. You can play with your phone. You can hold it. Well,
it doesn't hold you up. Like, you can still.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm gonna be on the phone, I usually can't sit still.
Yeah.
I have to be walking around, or I'll make a call when I'm going to be in the car or something.
Yeah.
Hands free in the car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. I find myself walking around with the phone in my hand too, and I can't figure out what is with that, but it just seems to, I can't just sit still and do it.
No. I can't either. Well, we drifted a little bit.
Conversations tend to do.
For me, learning how to enter a conversation definitely came from just being forced to do it a whole bunch of times.
That's true. And I hate that. I hate being at events like that and having to do that. But that sort of professional experience is useful and not something that everybody gets a chance to have.
Right.
But
and usually you got a goodie bag by the end of the night. So
sometimes there was alcohol, so that would help.
A little reward. Some free shampoo or something.
Here, you had a good conversation. You get some conditioning.
You win this bag of tissue paper.
Maybe that's what I need to do. I need to try prizes. If I like the way you come into this conversation, honey, here's an iTunes card.
Right. Well, what they say about positive reinforcement.
There you go. That's true.
For children and pets.